Welcome to this week's race news, where we'll be looking at the Grici XC in Slovenia, the XCO Premantura Rocky Trail in Croatia, plus we have the Three Nations Cup in Belgium, the Swiss Bike Cup, and a look at round one of the British Downhill Series. Also some results from the Kilimanjaro 7-3. Plus we'll be discussing big time The Undertaker finally returning to WWE's WrestleMania. Oh, actually, wait, no, that's what I'll be talking to the boys with over coffee later on. Let's get back to the mountain biking. Let's start this week with last Monday's Grici XC 2018, the first major XC of the Slovenian calendar and round one of the Slovenian XC Cup. Not only that, it's also a Category 1 UCI event, so lots of points on offer for ranking on the international scene. That means plenty of international races too. The track was mainly vineyards and forest, but the 20% of it that was fire road meant the pace was staying high. In the men's race, it was Bianchi, Countervails, Nadir Coldani heading up an Italian 1-2-3, just ahead of Lycra-clad and Gerhard Korsbamer. In the women's, Tanya Jakelj took her Junior Da Vinci to a home win ahead of another strong showing from Italy's Giorgia Marche and Marika Tovo, both of Team Rudy Project. Looks like some good racing to be had in the Slovenian XC this year. The 22nd edition of the Premantura Rocky Trail's XCO took place this Saturday just outside of Pula in Croatia. The totally natural course winds through areas of pine forest and woodland near Volun and Skuza Bay. Awaiting the riders was 4 kilometres of technical XC single track with 190 metres of climbing per lap, some on very technical surfaces. Tough day. The women's elite race was won by Slovenian Blaza Pintaric in a time of 1 hour 25 minutes. Average speed of 16 kilometers an hour kept Blaza ahead of the field. Some decent gaps in the women's race actually. 1 minute back was Czech Karla Stepanova of Team N1 BMC, a further minute ahead of third placed Jitka Skarnetslova. Times weren't too much tighter in the men's race. A clear win for Italy's Luca Brado, clearly recovered from Grici, winning by a margin of 50 seconds. A 19.7 kilometers an hour average speed, not only impressive considering the race train, but more than enough to keep him clear of the bunch. A similar story to the women's race really, with second and third place being awarded to Czech athletes Matthias Ullmann and Thomas Papska. Now, round one of the Three Nations Cup got underway in Belgium, Beringen to be exact, and it was a dusty and rocky affair on a course I really like the look of, consisting of sweeping berms that were cut into the hills and really challenging man-made rock descents that looked pretty awesome. A really attractive looking challenge. The immediate series lead of the Three Nations goes to Sabrina Ino, who was in fine form and finished well ahead of Lucy Arruti, who was the only real challenger to Ino. A 1 minute 26 advantage splitting the two of them. Back in third was Nina Benz, 4 minutes 22 down on the leader. In the men's elite category, the racing was hotly contended, kicking off with a blistering start in the hot weather. By the end of it, it was Pierre de Freudmont who was 1:45 ahead of his nearest rival. A strong ride on a challenging course. The podium was rounded off by Jens Schumans and Ruben Schier. The Three Nations Cup continues next week in the hills of Sauhausen in Germany. BMC's Titouan Corot of France took the win here at the Tamaro Trophy, round one of the Profix Swiss Bike Cup. This is a highly competitive series drizzled with World Cup talent, so always hotly contended. Corot will be pleased to have snapped up the lead of the series, the UCI points, but also riding home ahead of Matthias Fluckinger and BMC teammate Lars Forster, and also Julian Absalon, who wasn't having his best day, finishing in 5th place. He was making a few uncharacteristic mistakes, eventually crossing the line nearly a minute down on the fine display from Corot. Yolanda Neff was defeated on the technical course by mechanicals and a puncture in this race, struggling with dropping her chain a number of times, and eventually that puncture sealing her fate as the rider with the worst luck on the day. But where one rider suffers, others gain, and Alessandra Keller of Thomas Arin Racing was best placed to capitalise on Neff's demise. Romana Forcini coming home in second for Felt. The UK national downhill returned to Cana in South Wales for the first time since 2005, when it was won back then by G Atherton with his brother Dan close behind. It's a classic track built by the UK's Rowan Sorrell, who's responsible for many trails in the southwest of Wales. Steep, rough and rocky, riders power down the top section towards a spectator favourite, the motorway section with high speeds, huge berms and big jumps, sending a rider to a packed finish corral. Matt Walker took the win in the Elite Men's, his first race in this category, beating teammate Danny Hart by just over a second. A decent margin for a young racer who's looking like he'll make a huge impact on the elite field at World Cup level. With Madison Saracen taking first and second, third and fourth went to MS Mondraker. The dissolution of the CRC nuke-proof downhill team left Mike Jones up for grabs at the start of the season, and he looks like he's getting really comfortable on that new bike. Adam Brayton rounded out the men's top 5, beating G to it by just 0.4 of a second. It's tight at the top. Business as usual for Rachel Atherton though, with a comfortable 3-second margin at the head of the women's field. Rachel described the track as British, which presumably meant rough, wet and muddy. It seemed to work for her though, as she fairly comfortably claimed the victory in her first big race back since last year's injuries. A sign of things to come maybe. Tani Seagrave powered into second place, looking stylish on the big jumps. The UK's Katie Curd took third place after a brief hiatus from racing, just 2 seconds back from Tani, and she's got to be stoked with that. Fourth and fifth was super tight between Lucy Drees and Abby Sloan, Lucy taking fourth by just 0.4 of a second, but both a decent margin back from the top 3 girls on the day. Also this week it was another win for Thiago Ferrero. The Red Bull athlete seems to make his way onto my script every week at the moment. This time he topped the podium of the Rock-Lisgay. Great ride for him with the European champs on its way in just a few weeks. Now to the Kilimanjaro 7-3. After a short enduro on Friday afternoon, the main event kicked off on Saturday featuring a 58km challenge. This race is in its 7th year and goes through the Lycra Game Reserve, where you can see all the African game you could imagine. The race went from the foothills of Kilimanjaro at 3,000 feet, winding up to 7,000 feet over 20 kilometers, followed by 30 kilometers of downhill section back down to the 3,000 foot finish. Congratulations goes to Patrick Wiley for the win, with Simon Lee and Fred Yongo taking the last 2 steps. Huge thanks to Ben Kelleher for telling us all about the event and sending in the photo. Let us know where you've been racing this weekend by sending us your event photos and video to racenews@gmbn.com, and we'll feature them here next Monday. And if you think your race should be featuring in GMBN Race News, then get in touch on that same email. Thanks for watching. Stay with us here on GMBN by clicking here to see my Get Restarted video. Hit the globe to subscribe and give me a thumb or 2 if you like race news. I'll see you next week.